Good afternoon, everybody. I appreciate you joining us again for Job Talk. We're going to give you a little bit of perspective today from a recruiter's desk, or from my desk, if you will, on how we go about looking for candidates, working through the resume process. So those that have returned, welcome back. Those that are new to this web talk, it's meant to be interactive. Feel free to chat or ask your questions at any time. And we want this to be as interactive as possible for everybody. So welcome again. My name is Matt Peal. I'm one of the partners here at Impact Business Group. And as I said, we're going to focus on how to connect with a recruiter and give you some perspective from the recruiter's desk about the job search, the resume, the interview, and how we can help position you in a spot to find that next role. For those of you that are not familiar with Impact Business Group, I encourage you to hit our website, impactbusinessgroup.com. We focus on IT, engineering, accounting, finance, HR, and administration, offices in Grand Rapids and Tampa. As I said, www.impactbusinessgroup.com will get you better acquainted to who we are, what we do. The differentiators, redundant, 200-plus years cumulative experience in the industry. Like I said, if you hit our website, it'll give you more information. Today, what I want to do is give you a perspective from a recruiter's desk, from my seat, how recruiters look for you, the candidate, how a candidate stands out, and how you can make yourself visible to recruiters who are searching for you. Okay? From a recruiter's desk, from the seat I sit in when I'm engaged in a search, I turn to LinkedIn. Almost starts every one of my searches. I'm looking at both industry experience, functional expertise, technical expertise, and putting in those keywords in LinkedIn to try and find both active as well as passive candidates. Okay? How do you stand out? Make sure in your profile on LinkedIn you incorporate those functional experiences, that industry experience, those technical qualifications that you bring to the table. We are using LinkedIn extensively. How your resume sits should be represented in LinkedIn. One of the best and easiest things you can do to make yourself visible to us. Like I said, it's important to talk about the functional and industry and technical experiences you have. The more I know about you heading into that call, the better. Some of the common mistakes people make when trying to make themselves visible to recruiters is assumptions that everyone knows who Steelcase is. I pick on Steelcase. I think I picked on Steelcase last time in this discussion. I mean, no disrespect to them, but people have an assumption that everyone knows who Steelcase is. Don't make that assumption. Lend some background and some credence to the company you're with, who they are, what they do, how large they are, so that recruiter who's searching you has some breadth going in there, what this person has done, how large the organization is. Where to look for jobs offered by recruiting firms? LinkedIn, Indeed. As you see those postings out there, it's pretty self-explanatory which groups are staffing and which is the direct client. You want to try and connect with those recruiting firms that lend itself more to a specific job category. For instance, an IT recruiter. We generally don't want to connect you with a light industrial recruiter if your background's specifically IT. How and why to work with a recruiting firm, what are some of the advantages of using a firm, is really the relationship. That recruiting firm should have a deep background either in a functional or technical arena. Those folks should be able to help you with feedback, preparation going into the interview, and their experiences in a specific marketplace or geographic location to give you a leg up, shall we say, or foot up into that job search. Okay? From the desk that I sit as well, the resume, one of the most common mistakes that we see from a resume standpoint is not enough information. Folks trying to put 15 years worth of experience on one page doesn't lend itself to all the industry, functional, technical skills that you bring to the equation. Give more information than not enough. And as I said to you before, we're looking for functional, technical, and industry experience when we're looking for a specific candidate. What should you include on the resume? And it goes with most common mistakes. Include more information. When in doubt, include it versus less. I spoke a little bit last quarter on cover letters. It's not imperative from a recruiter standpoint. If the application process requires one, do so. But from the seat we sit in, the cover letter just is not looked at. There's no time spent on reading through somebody's introductory statement. We want to look into the resume and see exactly what the person has done. Okay? From an interview standpoint, that recruiter should help prepare you, and this is their biggest advantage from your seat. They should help you going into that interview. Who are you going to talk to? What are the things that you should be prepared for? What questions should you ask the person doing the interviewing? It's a two-way street, so not only do we want to give you perspective of what that employer is looking for, but we want to lend your questions to your background and their suitability to what that opening is. We'll help you shape up those questions to ask. What are those quote-unquote hot buttons for the hiring manager? How to uncover those hot buttons and really get an intimate understanding of what critical factors are key to finding this role. The follow-up in today's marketplace, the follow-up on every interview seems to be getting worse and worse every day. The recruiter should be able to help you with that. You should be able to get immediate feedback from that recruiter on your interview. If they have the relationship with the client, they should be able to answer your questions, articulate any concerns you have to their client relation, and let you know what next steps will be, if any at all. Okay? So that recruiter should help you through that interview process. I know I hit these topics very quickly, but just as we did in Job Talk last quarter, I want to make sure I turn this over to you folks, see if there's any questions that you have that I can try and answer on any one of those areas. With that said, are there any questions? Has to be something out there. Okay. One of the questions that came through is, what if you're not looking for the exact same job? What you want to do is gear your professional summary to what you're looking for. So if you're in an engineering field and you want to move more into the operations or finance side, you want to gear your professional summary to those experiences in the operations and finance area. Okay? You certainly want to present your resume and information of the things you have done and currently do, but moreover highlight those really functional and technical skills that you have, move it into the other area. Again, from a recruiter standpoint, they're going to help you with that as well when you connect with that recruiter, to ask that person on the recruiting side, what can I do to present myself in a particular fashion? And they're going to let you know up front, hey, it's not something I can help you with. The clients that engage us are looking for specific expertise in this area that you used to be in, but they should be able to direct you to some areas and some other people that will be able to help you in that desired job search. Next question that popped up, you see hundreds of people are applying for jobs, and you're applying for the same one and not getting calls. How do you stand out when companies are using keyword search for the filters? We do the exact same thing, right? We're using keywords in my filter, just as I talked to you about on the LinkedIn. I'm punching in those words, looking for a starting pool of candidates. It doesn't mean that the perfect candidate's in there, but that's my starting point, okay? But you have to represent what you do know functionally and technically to try and stand out. Think about it from the recruiter's seat, which I'm trying to articulate to you. I want to find that person that may not be actively looking or have their information presented out there with keywords that are applicable to a job. Back to my steel case example, you want to present your furniture expertise, whether it be wood, whether it be metals. You want to incorporate those into your resume so those keywords jump out for somebody looking for you versus you always applying to a particular role and waiting for somebody to get back to you. Again, from a recruiter standpoint, when you work with a recruiter, they should be able to give you immediate feedback. It should bring some light to that black hole when you submit a resume in Monster or Indeed and waiting for somebody to get back to you. All right. The chats are flowing through, so I'll try and keep up. If it's easier for you to unmute and ask your question, please do so. But the next question on my docket is, somebody had said I've heard the opposite as it pertains to, resumes and cover letters. The point in this is, from a recruiter seat, I'm letting you know I don't look at cover letters. I want to dig into the guts of the person. I want to dig into what they have specifically done and what experiences they bring to the table. Now, if the requirement is of a cover letter, you're right. Keep it brief. Should be no more than 3 paragraphs, and when I mean a paragraph, you're probably talking no more than 2 sentences per paragraph. Here's my background. Here's how I align. I'm interested in learning more about this opportunity, and then the final paragraph, here's how you get in touch with me. Next question that came in on that is there a list of keywords that you searched the most? It's a tough question. Typically, we're doing searches around IT, engineering, or accounting, finance, so there are keywords in those particular disciplines that we're looking for most. But in today's market, the perfect candidate not only has functional expertise, but technical background, and then the industry. So my keywords that I use are all 3 of those areas are represented. There's some type of job title, there's some type of technical requirement, and then my perfect candidate also has industry experience. Doesn't mean the person wants to stay in the industry, but that's where my searches start. So next question that came through is saying, when your resume matches 100% of the job description, what's up? I'm assuming that means how come you're not getting a call back, or how come you're not being identified? Again, the benefit to the recruiter or using a recruiter is that exact question. Why don't I align? What is that feedback? They should be that conduit to the client to say, here's where the stretch is, or here's how this person's not matching up. And it could be a scenario where somebody just aligns a little bit better, whether it be functionally, technically, or number of years of experience. From the recruiter's desk, that question should be one that's answered immediately for you. How are you stacking up, and how come you're not getting the traction you need? Another question along the same lines is, what about when the recruiter doesn't get back with feedback? How often is it appropriate to reach back out to determine the status? Again, choosing the right partner on the recruiting side requires you to do your homework. Seek friends, peer groups, what recruiters they've used in the past. What has gone well, what hasn't. But when you're working with that recruiter, ask them the question. How often? When should I hear back from you? Should I check in weekly, every other day? What is the appropriate amount of time that should go by before I hear from you? Let that person let you know. Eliminate that gray area. And if you need weekly updates, tell them as such. I'll be following up with you every Monday at 9 and just get a status from the week. Both sides are okay. Both parties will let each other know what's the appropriate amount of time. But if you're not getting the feedback you need, you definitely want to reach out to them. That is their role in this, to be the conduit to clients. So great question, one we field all the time. Another one that's come through is if I use a website that helps me put keywords that match the job description, yet when I send in my application, I still don't get a response, either positive or negative. What do you think might be the issue? The issue is the amount of resumes that are being submitted, per job, per application, are higher than we've seen since really the early and mid-'90s. The volume is through the roof. HR is overwhelmed. And again, the problem with the resume and the benefit of using a recruiter is that resume is a one-dimensional representation. It doesn't say anything about your desires, your presentation, your communication. It just says one-dimensionally, here's what I've done, here's what I'm capable of, how do I align? No two job is the same, even though the keywords may be the same. No two company cultures are the same. One job might be heads down, and the applicant that's applying is more heads up, meaning they want to be more customer focused. They don't want to just be fed requirements underneath the door and be left alone. So that soft attribute of the job is the one that differentiates what type of person's going to get it and what person is not. Should be the benefit of using a recruiter as well to give you that insight about what company may align best for you from an overall cultural standpoint and what your career goals are. Another question along the same lines: what are your recommendations to contacting the hiring company to check your status if the recruiter is not responsive? If you've used a recruiter to gain entry to a specific role, you, good, bad, or indifferent, need to work through that recruiter. You have to stay persistent on them for that status, whether it's open, closed. If they're not responsive, close the loop with the particular role they've submitted you on, and then look for another recruiter that's going to engage and partner with you in the search. The danger of calling the company directly after you've been submitted in through a recruiter is just that. It could be a breakdown of communication on the recruiter side, could be on the company side, whatever it might be. What you don't want to be viewed as from the hiring company standpoint, because again, ultimately they're making the decision, not the recruiter. But what you don't want to do is present yourself in a light that looks inappropriate, circumventing processes. If that client has engaged a recruiter, they've done so for a reason, whether it's streamlining communication, whether it's vetting of candidates. If there isn't feedback coming your way, most clients' organizations give that to the recruiter right away. Maybe the recruiter doesn't like confrontation or views as giving you negative feedback is a bad thing. Conversely, the good recruiter is going to look at that and say, we learn more from our failures versus our successes, right? And that's life in general. And that recruiter should be giving you that feedback, honest, straightforward, and direct. It shouldn't be 2 weeks period before you get any type of feedback at all. From a recruiter's desk, when we submit a candidate on a job, we're driving that process with the client. What do you think about so-and-so's resume? How do they align? Would you like to talk to them? That recruiter has a vested interest to push through and get you feedback as quickly as they can. So great question about contacting and following up. Drive that process from your standpoint. Another question that just came through is I've seen companies have a recruiter from a contract company on site. Does Impact do the same thing and have people on site at companies? We do not, from a light industrial standpoint or manufacturing companies that use large volumes of resources or people. They do have an on-site coordinator. We don't, in the areas that we serve, we don't have an on-site coordinator. If you know or are connected to who that on-site coordinator is, you want to connect with them too. Don't be afraid to reach out to them and ask the same thing. To drive feedback. How does my resume stack up? Where am I at in the process? Is there interest on your side? If you can reach that on-site coordinator, that's the key for you in that search. Do recruiting firms utilize, blacklists for avoiding working with certain candidates for any reason? From a recruiting standpoint, do we have a blacklist? From the seat I sit in, we don't have a blacklist. Again, back to what we can and can't do from a recruiter's desk. We certainly can help get feedback. We can help get information to and from the candidates that we're working with. But the only one that can say yay or nay to you as a candidate for the opening is ultimately the client. We don't make any decisions. So the blacklist, I'm not aware of. I've been doing it for 20 years, but I'm not aware of any type of blacklist that people sit on per se. Another question along the same lines: how many candidates are you representing per position on average? Very difficult question to answer. The more technically advanced or more requirements a company has, shortens the list. For instance, on a CEO opening, there's only one per company. Cost accountant, there's usually 10 or 15 per client. So it's an economics 101. The higher the food chain, the less number of candidates that typically get submitted. Now, with that said, we will continue to look for candidates until the client says, I need to make an offer on one of these, or I have another candidate that they want to pursue. So our wheel doesn't stop, and we're not in a position to say, hey, we're only going to present one or two people. Because ultimately, in the seat we sit in from a recruiter standpoint, we don't make the decision. The client does. And we want to continue to meet people and push people forward that fit the role, both technically as well as culturally, until the client says we've made our decision. Along those same lines, this person just asked, how much competition are you dealing with today? Competition today is fierce. And what I mean by that is all client organizations have their internal recruiting teams. They have some type of external referral bonus program that says, hey, if you refer a friend and we hire them, there's a bonus attached to it. So not only are we competing with quote-unquote other recruiting firms, we're competing with that hiring client organization themselves as they push out incentive programs to their employees to refer candidates in. So the competition is fierce in today's market, not only from a recruiting standpoint, but you're competing with their internal referral program. Follow on to that is you mentioned the volume of candidates is very high today. So what metrics are you competing with? The only metric we're competing with in that aspect, at least, again, from the seat I sit in, is fills. We continue to meet, interview, screen, and submit qualified candidates until the client organization says the spot is filled. And that's something we're constantly asking about is, where are we at in the process? How many candidates do you have? And should we continue to search for this? That information is constantly being asked of our clients, and that should be shared to you as a candidate when working with a recruiter on a specific role. Do I consider spring the best hiring period in a year? Truthfully, I don't. Again, our sphere is IT, engineering, accounting, finance. We do some on the HR and administration side. But what we typically find is fourth quarter is really the most aggressive time. Why that is, end of year, use it or lose it budgets, headcount's been allocated and new fiscals come into play. So fourth quarter's pretty active. Springtime is a good time as well. The most difficult time is really summer, July and August. Decision makers are on vacation, and getting finalization of jobs or interviews is most difficult, at least from my seat, during the July and August time frame. Final question, on this dashboard anyway. Again, if you've got questions, please interrupt and ask or shoot it on the chat. But final question here is, I've applied for job openings through Impact. A recruiter has not contacted you. How does this happen? And do we have to reach out? Please reach out. Call our office number, 616-254-8586, and find out where you're at in the process. It should never be left in doubt. Are there any other questions I can try and answer for you? Once again, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you spending your questions or sending your questions on how to recruit. And one more's come through. Just 1 second here. I think we've covered that one with the metrics. Again, there's no metrics that we have from that standpoint. We're going to continue to qualify and send people until it's filled. So as this concludes, again, if you want to throw questions at us, our Twitter account's here. We're going to stand this up on our website afterwards, opportunities page on Impact Business Group. We too have a referral program, so if you have somebody that is looking or may align, please don't hesitate. We also do a candidate showcase. If you're not getting traction and want to be part of our candidate showcase, which is representation of your background that goes out to our clients, all that information can be found on our website. Happy to have you. Again, I appreciate everybody joining us on Job Talk and how to connect with a recruiter. We will be at this next quarter as well with a follow-up and give it from a client's perspective. So thank you all again.